Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a rough few days for pro wrestling fans across the globe. The great former WWE heavyweight champion Big E broke his neck on SmackDown in a failed wrestling move. He will recover. But the second big news, and again, it was ongoing for a number of days, but it ended tragically. The very beloved and very popular Scott Hall, best known as Razor Ramon in WWE, and of course part of the Outsiders NWO invasion in WCW, has passed away due to complications from surgery. Now, according to published reports, in March of 2022, Hall was hospitalized after falling and breaking his hip. Now, after he underwent hip surgery, a blood clot was dislodged and caused Hall to suffer 3 heart attacks on March 12th, after which he was put on life support at the Wellstar Kensington Hospital in Marietta, Georgia. Now, according to his best friend Kevin Nash, the other key member besides Hulk Hogan in NWO and the Outsiders, Hall will be removed from life support when Hall family is in place, and of course that has occurred. Now, for the modern generation of wrestlers, a lot of people remember him as part of, again, the NWO and maybe a little bit of the last glory era of WCW. But for a lot of people, they remember how he came up. So in today's podcast, we're going to talk about a little of his background, how he ended up in pro wrestling, and he became, again, one of the most popular wrestlers of his generation. Probably the best wrestler in history to not hold a world wrestling championship, although he held Intercontinental belt and various other tag team belt. Again, one of the best ever not to hold the title. Now, with the WWF, he held 4 WWF Intercontinental Championship. When he departed the NWO, WCW, United States Heavyweight Champion for WCW, a one-time WCW World Television Champion, and a 9-time World Tag Team Champion in WCW, mostly with Scott Hall. Now, Scott Oliver Hall was born on October 20th, 1958 in St. Mary's County, Maryland, 7 miles south of Washington. He grew up as an Army brat and moved once every year before he was 15, and eventually attended high school in Munich, West Germany. Now, he turned to a big size, 6'7", 290 pounds. Now, trained by the great Hiro Matsuda, who saw something in him from the start. He began his career in 1984 in the National Wrestling Alliance Florida territory, which was called Championship Wrestling from Florida, and soon began a feud with Dusty Rhodes. Now, he and Dangerous Dan Spivey trained together in Florida, mainly under Rhodes, but also under Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham. When it was time for the two to debut as a tag team, Rhodes sent them to work in Jim Crockett's Charlotte, North Carolina-based territory. They debuted as American Starship, Hall under his ring name Starship Coyote, and Spivey under the ring name Starship Eagle. At first, American Starship were booked to wrestle infrequently, so much so that the two were given ground crew jobs for the Charlotte Orioles, which Jim Crockett owned at the time. When he did get in the ring, it was with little success. The Highlanders' stay in Crockett's Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling was a losing challenge to Arn and Ole Anderson for the NWA National Tag Team title. After leaving Crockett, the duo joined Bob Geigel's NWA Central States territory, which was based in Kansas City, in 1985. Now, it eventually received a shot at NWA Central States Tag Team Champions Marty Jannetty and Bulldog Bob Brown, of course, of the Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling history, but lost the match. Dan Spivey's stay in the Central States Territory was brief. He returned to the Carolinas and Crockett, jobbing in the freshly rebranded Jim Crockett Promotions as American Starship Eagle. Hall, meanwhile, stayed in Central States, receiving a push. Now, when Hall became the legendary superstar, was built on his great popularity in AWA. Now, this was the Vern Gagne run territory, and he really became the international prominence with AWA when it was really an international force. He joined the AWA in 1985, where he wrestled as Magnum Scott Hall, and later Big Scott Hall. He wrestled as a babyface at the time. Now, Vern Gagne, the owner and promoter of AWA, had wanted to push Hall to the same heights as he had Hulk Hogan, following Hogan's departure for Vince McMahon's WWF. Gagne had Hall use mannerism moves similar to Hogan. He also traveled to Japan, where he wrestled several matches for New Japan Pro Wrestling between 87 and 1990. Now, Hall eventually formed a tag team with his more experienced friend Kurt Hennig, which he would later credit for cultivating his early professional wrestling career. Mr. Perfect and the future Razor Ramon were a great tag team. If you can find the YouTubes of some of the early matches, check it out. The team eventually defeated Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal for the AWA World Tag Team title on January 1886 in a 58-minute match in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The champions defended against such challengers as Buddy Rose and Doug Summers, Nor the Barbarian and Boris Zukov, and Bill and Scott Irwin. They lost the belts to Rose and Summers by countout, an unusual unexplained deviation from the standard rule of pro wrestling, on May 17th after interference by Colonel De Beers. After losing the title, Hall and Hennig soon parted ways. Hall then received shots at the AWA World Heavyweight Championship against Stan Hansen and Rick Bartel. Now, although Gagne wanted to put the belt on Hall, Hall hated the cold weather in the Minneapolis and region territory and recognized the IWA as a sinking ship and left them just a few months before it folded. Now, when he joined the NWA, this was kind of weird. He was brought into WCW wrestling territory by all people Jim Ross in 1989 as part of the NWA's initiative to develop new young stars, which at the time included Brian Pillman and Sid Vicious. He made his debut on the June 3rd edition of WCW Wrestling, the precursor to WCW Saturday Night, in a vignette that showed Scott Gator Hall swimming and playing volleyball at the beach, riding boats, fishing, and scaring alligators. His in-ring debut came on June 16th on a house show in Cleveland, where he teamed with Randy Rose in losing efforts against WCW World Tag Team Champions, the Freebirds. While waiting for his first TV match, he continued to wrestle on the road and was winless in tag teams and singles action, facing Norman, the Freebirds, and Dan Spivey. Hall finally gained his first victory on June 29th when he pinned Rick Morgan in Salisbury, Maryland, and then entered a successful house show series with Bill Irwin. His TV debut finally came on July 9th edition of World Championship Wrestling, where he's pinned by the Great Muta. On the July 9th edition of WCW Pro, he faced Terry Funk and was defeated. His pay-per-view debut came at the Great American Bash, the Glory Days, where he participated in the King of the Hill Battle Royal. He then began jobbing regularly, losing to the Great Muta, Mike Rotunda, Sid Vicious, Ron Simmons, and Butch Reed. On November 7th, when he was defeated by Butch Reed in a house show in Chicago. After this, he went on hiatus. Now, he did have a house show tryout with WWF in 1987, and also had another tryout in 1980, where he was defeated by, of all people, Paul Roma, but did not sign with the company at the time. Now, shortly afterwards, Hall joined New Japan, teaming with Larry Cameron of Stampede Wrestling fame to defeat Hiroshi Hase and Kunihaka Kobayashi at the Korakuen Hall in Tokyo. He wrestled numerous times for the company, facing a diverse group of opponents including Bam Bam Bigelow, Koji Katayo, Nor the Barbarian, and Shinzei Hashimoto. Now, later on, he went to Catch Wrestling Association as Texas Scott, where he competed at the Catch Cup 90 tournament on December 22nd, 1990 in Bremen, Germany, before 6,000 fans. Hall was eventually defeated by the Soul Taker in the tournament final. This big event featured the retirement match of Otto Rounds, as well as Terry Funk, Bill Power, who was Big Van Vader, of course, Chris Benoit, David Taylor, Fit Finlay, and Akira Nagami in action. Now, He did have a short stint in the WWC in Puerto Rico, then went back to World Championship Wrestling for what is considered his golden age. After wrestling a dark match on April 29, 1991 in Atlanta at a taping of WCW, Hall made his official return to WCW and was renamed the Diamond Stud, a gimmick similar to Rick Rude's style. Both were cocky, vain, and would invite attractive women for the audience into the ring. He was managed by Diamond Dallas Page and made his first appearance on May 19th at Super Bowl I. In his debut, he squashed Tommy Rich at Clash of the Champions 15. He then defeated Tom Zink at the Great American Bash, and at Clash of the Champions 16, the Diamond Stud lost to Ron Simmons. At Halloween Havoc 91, the team of Stud, Abdullah the Butcher, Cactus Jack, and Big Van Vader lost to Sting, El Gigante, and the Steiner Brothers in a Chamber of Horrors match. On the November 19 episode of Clash of the Champions 17, Stud lost to Zink in a rematch from the Great American Bash. Now, after an injury sidelined him for Starrcade in December 91, he entered 1992 forming short-lived tag teams with Vinny Vegas and Scotty Flamingo. Of course, Vinny Vegas, Scott Hall, as part of the Diamond Mine stable. He was also a member of Paulie Dangerously's Dangerous Alliance. Hall began an intense feud with Dustin Rhodes in April 92 when he interfered in the 2 televised matches Rhodes had with Bobby Eaton. The idea of adding to the Dangerous Alliance was contemplated, but fell through, and Hall left WCW shortly after a final televised match against Ron Campbell on May 8. And of course, the WWF years are very, very prominent, but he paid his dues at every level in WCW and all the federations. But the thing is, I don't think anybody knew what to do to him. But of course, when he got to WWF and he put the Tony Montana character from Scarface on to Razor Ramon, he became a superstar. So all the AWA and WCW training and the Japanese training, he could wrestle. But to see Scott Hall as a jobber, especially after what happened with Razor Ramon, for a decade, literally, Razor Ramon and the Scott Hall character was the most dangerous, literally, wrestler out there, because you never knew what he was going to do, and the skills were there. You put it this way, we say Bret Hart is a technical wrestler. Scott Hall had technical wrestling like crazy. By God, he came up with the Mr. Perfect era. But what's going to stand out for me with Scott Hall over the years? The immense amounts of talent. Sure, he had bad times in his life, but the talent was already there. And the biggest mistake, besides leaving Hogan go, was not putting on the belt on Scott Hall, but Scott Hall saw the writing on the wall, especially how Mr. Perfect was treated as world champion. So, ladies and gentlemen, our condolences to Scott Hall's family. We wish him the best, all the fans. And, ladies and gentlemen, you know, we forgave a lot in Scott Hall's life because he was Scott Hall. There was never a Scott Hall before Scott Hall, and you'll never see another one again. And he's been ripped off in so many ways because the perfect physical specimen for his type of what he call heel character, you couldn't do nothing but love. The turn him face in the WWF after a number of years because of the 1-2-3 connection. But what he did with the Outsiders NWO changed wrestling, because we're still feeling it 25 years later. We never saw NWO ever again in the modern era. AEW was like 150 to what the NWO did, and that's saying a lot. When the NWO was on, and just remember, to debut the NWO, they didn't debut it through Kevin Nash. They debuted it through Scott Hall, for obvious reasons. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here with our wrestling podcast, give us a like, comment, or subscribe. And again, our condolences to Scott's family. We wish him the best in heaven. I hope he's going to heaven. But if he does go to hell,